Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to examine our bodies deeply with David Cronenberg's 1986 remake of The Fly. Let's get to it. We open at a posh science conference where all the stylish nerds go to discuss their earth-shattering discoveries, whilst sipping champagne and eating foie gras, like scientists so often do. Veronica is here looking for some juicy interviews, and while Seth Brundle claims his recent work is a real juicer, he's not willing to discuss the details of it in front of competitors. He begs her back to his lab where he immediately starts showing off, and then introduces her to his pods while impersonating Jeff Goldblum. He keeps its purpose a secret, utilizing the titillation of uncertainty to acquire one of her stockings, which he then transports from one pod to the other, revealing the result in a coy manner. Seeing the potential, she starts stuttering out some questions, but he demurs when he sees he's being recorded. He didn't intend for her to write about it, despite this being her job and him trying several times to lure her there for an interview, so she runs off to find a typewriter. The next day, her editor suggests the evidence she's produced is scant, and that Seth is likely pulling a trick on her. Seth actually shows up to the office, but finds he doesn't have to convince Stathis to not print the article, as he dismisses Seth and disparages several of his employees on his way out like a true cock. Brundle then invites Veronica out to discuss science over cheeseburgers and reveals he's not ready because he's still struggling to transport animate objects, but that he'd like her to be the documentarian of his experiments. Back at the lab, we find he's got one of them there monkeys, and he uses it as a test, but finds the result cast it into a state of existential crisis. In the emotional high of their failure, they consummate the relationship. He's then hit with inspiration, using a steak taste test to confirm the computer's interpreting rather than reproducing. The interpretations fall short because he's failed to teach it the poetry of the flesh. Veronica takes a break from her budding relationship to address a stale one. Stathis, her boss and former lover, is creeping around and makes no bones about his jealousy. Now confident in his ability to teach computers love, Seth goes right back to the baboons, and this time it works. As they celebrate, Veronica finds a passive-aggressive threat to pull the trigger on her article prematurely, so she goes to confront Stathis. She leaves Seth to converse with his baboon, who suggests there may be cause for jealousy, so Brundle decides, for drunk reasons, to teleport himself to a world where he's not insecure. Unbeknownst to him, a fly flies in the pod, but due to the infallible power of computers, he emerges from the mist looking unharmed, and he monkeys up. Veronica returns and reassures him. That night she wakes up to find Brundle doing some late-night calisthenics along with a full bar routine. You know, like a fly. Over coffee, he reveals his working hypothesis that the act of being reassembled purifies the subject, making him better and causing him to act like a Goldblum. They have a row about her unwillingness to improve herself in order to keep up with him, and he runs off to think and expend some energy. In the typical fashion of 80s movies, he challenges the dude for the rights to bed his lady, and when Marky indicates an attempt to perform the King's move, Seth opts to top roll him hard, securing the win. He carries his prize upstairs and balls her brains out, but she's still reluctant to get into this stranger's unusual machine for some reason. Luckily, Veronica arrives and warns her off. She drops some hard truths on Seth.
You smell bad.
He says, "I'm a man," and kicks her out to be rid of her negative energy. He then immediately goes to explore his body, starting with his fingernails, and continuing with his fingernails. Stop doing that! Realizing something may be wrong, he reviews the records of the first teleportation and finds evidence of a secondary, non-Brundle element, which is eventually revealed to have been a fly. 4 weeks later, he calls Veronica again, confirming she was correct, and that he needs her. She finds that he's deteriorating, but is maintaining his sense of humor.
The computer decided to splice us together. We hadn't even been properly introduced.
Forgetting himself for a moment, he takes a snack and then begs her for help. She meets with her most trusted confidant, her scuzzy ex-boyfriend. He doesn't feel he can make judgment without more information, so she returns to find Brundle flourishing, now embracing his metamorphosis. She gets video to share with Stathis, who's horrified, and then they keep the horror train rolling, when Veronica reveals she's pregnant with a little Brundlefly larva. Meanwhile, Brundlefly is typing as fast as his flippers allow, and discovers that the best way to get him close to being human again is to fuse with a pure human. Veronica then shows up for one last goodbye, telling Stathis outside she was unable to break it to Brundlefly that she's pregnant. But it's okay, he's observing. So when she goes for an emergency procedure, he brings her back to be part of his unification project. Stathis gets back before them and uncovers the plan, but he's not ready for an air attack. Brundlefly then works to digest both his hand and ankle, and with things getting a little surreal, he decides to take a break. When Veronica resists him, she cracks open his human facade. Stathis is able to damage her pod just in time, and Brundlefly is unable to escape before teleportation, resulting in a disgusting and pitiful mess, which she puts out of its misery by request. And that was The Fly. A cautionary tale of something, and fairly gross, so it's got that going for it. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.